Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Connect conference for June, which is coinciding accidentally with the England football match. So thank you, double thank you for being here. Hopefully there won't be too many background cheers, or maybe there should be background cheers disturbing us as we hear progress through the match. But thank you for joining us. We've got two fantastic mentors who are going to share their career stories with us today. I hope that the mentees who are with us will have plenty of questions. Please do think about questions. You can either type them in the chat, or you can put your cameras on, raise your hands. At the bottom of your screen, there's a menu that includes gestures. Oh, there's a react icon. You can use that to raise your hand and let us know if you want to turn your camera on and ask a question. I'll offer opportunities to ask questions as we're going through, in between the speakers and then after both speakers have shared their career stories. I'm going to share my screen now, and then I shall introduce our first speaker, who is Hajira Mohammed. I'm not going to explain too much about it because she has a really sort of interesting and varied career in different organisations, and I think hearing it directly from her will be much more interesting than me trying to summarise it. So Hajira, if I can hand over to you, I'm going to mute myself and ask you to take it away. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Fozia. Thanks for the intro. Thanks to everyone on the call today who's here and not watching the football. Thank you. I just want to say good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hajira Mohammed. I am the founder of Culture Curator and Coach. I launched my business about 3 months ago. And Culture Curator and Coach is a consultancy working at the intersection of inclusion, culture, well-being, and coaching. So I just want to start by saying, especially to the mentees, I see you, because not that long ago, or maybe, I don't know, I was sitting exactly where you are, just trying to figure it out, hoping someone would support me, guide me, tell me that there wasn't just one way to build and grow a career. So today I want to share my story, the real one, not the polished LinkedIn version, the squiggly one. That's how I describe my career. And Fozia kind of just touched on it. It's a really squiggly career. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about my background. I was born in South Africa during apartheid. So I grew up watching the country transform through the transition to democracy, and what we call, or South Africans call, through the Mandela years. When Nelson Mandela was freed in the mid 1990s, so 1994, that was when I was sort of going from primary school into high school. And that time in South African history really shaped everything about how I see the world. So equality wasn't just an abstract concept to me. I watched people fight for freedom, and I also watched what it cost. I came from a working class background. I was the first in my family to go to university. I went to the University of Johannesburg. And at that time, that just felt so enormous and terrifying. I didn't really know what to study. It was quite a big decision, right? As a teenager, having to decide like a specific career. So I studied journalism because I really wanted to tell the stories that matter. I wanted to travel, and I thought becoming a journalist would be a great way to do that. And then I also, as part of that, I also studied psychology. I was just really interested in human behavior, in the human condition, in the way humans think and are. And then after studying, I came to the UK on a gap year. At the time, there was a 2-year working holiday visa that was given to South Africans, Australians, and New Zealanders. And in 1 year you could work, and 1 year you could travel. And so I was supposed to stay for 2 years, and 18 years later, I'm still here. Um, but now I'll tell you a little bit about my early career. So when I arrived, I had a degree, I had ambition, um, lots of hopes and dreams, and absolutely no idea what I was going to do professionally. And so I did what a lot of us do, which is sort of either work in retail, you know, while you're finding your feet. And I did that in the charity sector. So I worked in a charity shop, and I did lots of different things, but mostly I just showed up. I learned, I contributed. It wasn't glamorous, but it taught me something important. Purpose-driven work feels different. It grounds you. I was doing good work in a charity, and I was learning about how things work. Um, and then I did something that raised a few eyebrows. I applied for an internship or an apprenticeship at the National Trust. So the Heritage Lottery Fund were looking for people from diverse backgrounds to learn how to become conservators. And I knew that the National Trust was one of the UK's oldest and most beloved institutions in terms of care of collections, heritage, historic properties, and it wasn't the obvious next move for a South African journalist. But, you know, I learned so much in that time. You know, I trained, I loved learning about historic objects. I learned about curating objects. I became a qualified scaffolder. I used my creativity in like showing off the house. I worked with local communities. And the National Trust taught me how institutions hold culture, how they decide what gets preserved and what gets left out. And that turned out to be directly relevant to everything I've done since. Um, and after that job, my mum said to me, "You have a degree and you need to stop this posh cleaning." Um, so I then moved into government, into the civil service. For a few years, I worked in the Home Office. I actually became the community engagement officer, working with Home Office officers on the ground, training them on gender equality when coming into contact with vulnerable girls and women who are coming through Calais. And that was my first work that I did in terms of equality, to specifically gender equality, but operationally. And then after 2 years of doing that, a role came up at the Government Equalities Office, and then the Cabinet Office. So in the Government Equalities, this is really where things started to click into place. So I started using my journalism or writing skills. I worked on national equality policy. I helped launch the gender pay gap regulations and worked in that team. You know, that legislation required employers from across the UK to publish their pay data for the first time. And then I worked on LGBTQ plus workplace equality policy. Um, and that was just something I'd never done before. You know, I learned about how government works. I was also using just a range of skills, stakeholder management, working with different academics. I worked on legislation, and so I was definitely starting to find my feet. And then I moved into the Cabinet Office to help the civil service itself become more inclusive. So that was 500,000 people who work in the civil service across 18 Whitehall departments. And in that team, I worked with on strategy, on a diversity and inclusion strategy, and did sorts of work around still around equalities as the common thread. So I was starting to shape the systems that affect, you know, millions of people's working lives, not just in the UK, but in Europe, and then also internally in the civil service. And I was doing it as a first generation migrant from a diverse background who came here on a gap year. So nobody had handed me a roadmap. I was building my own. Um, 5 years later, a role came up at the BBC, and I thought this is my full circle moment. It was the BBC were looking for their first diversity and inclusion lead for BBC News. I have a journalism background. Although the role was different to journalism, it showed that I would be working on output, which was like looking at the equality of language and also making the BBC more diverse and inclusive. And I thought, well, this sounds like a role that was written for me. So, you know, I studied journalism. I came to the UK wanting to tell stories, and I ended up inside one of the world's great institutions and newsrooms. So, not as a journalist, but as the first ever DNI uh, lead in BBC News. Inside BBC, I then worked on language and equalities and inclusion during two um, conflicts. So at the time, it was the conflict between, well, the second conflict was Israel-Gaza, so the more recent one. And then it was Russia-Ukraine before that. So it was a really tough time in terms of editorial. And also the BBC, as you will know, publicly are going through a lot of change. They've got a new DG, and they're also losing a lot of staff. So it was a really tough time to be working internally and also like externally facing through editorial. But in BBC, I trained to become a coach, and I coached thousands of senior professionals whilst I was there, leaders, anyone that needed career coaching. I also shaped strategy across multiple regions. I was the global lead. I worked with broadcasters across Europe, including in conflict affected areas. I co-created a neurodiversity toolkit with academic experts that's now being used across the sector. And I specialized in neurodiversity or neuro-inclusive coaching, having noticed that a lot of journalists were or are neurodivergent. And I learned something that I learned something there that I carry into everything I do. Inclusion isn't a program you run. It's not a strategy. It's not a policy. It's a culture that you build every single day through 1,000 small decisions and behaviors. And then this year, I made the biggest decision of my career. I left the BBC and I founded Culture Curator and Coach, my own business. It's just been something I've always wanted to do. I thought, I've had a good innings in the sort of corporate world. And I thought, let me have a go at something that I haven't done before. Because I realized the thread running through all of it, charity, heritage, government, media, was always the same. The why never changed. I know my purpose, and I believe in equality, not as a policy, not as a tick box. It's something real that changes how people feel when they walk into work. I believe in inclusion for social good. My belief ultimately is if you are happy at work and you're thriving and you're growing and you're doing well, that feeling goes with you home to like when you surround a family and friends, and then that has a positive impact on society. And that practice is rooted in Ubuntu, which is an African philosophy that says I am because we are. So your success and my success are not separate things. We rise together. And so lastly, onto what I've learned. So there's 4 things that I'll leave you with this afternoon. The first thing is range over ladder. A squiggly career, as you've heard, isn't a detour, it's depth. Every unexpected role I took added something I couldn't have planned for. The second thing is know your why. Purpose connects the dots, even when that path isn't obvious, and the path won't always be obvious. The third thing is lived experience is expertise. Your perspective, your background, your story, that's not baggage, that's your value. And finally, you don't have to fit the mold to lead. You can build something that fits you instead. And so, just to close, I came to the UK on a gap year. I stayed because I found my purpose here. And today I'm standing in front of you, mentors and mentees, like, because someone once believed in me before I fully believed in myself. And I think that's what this program does. Don't underestimate it. And I'm so grateful to Fozia and Alam for asking me to join the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hajira. That's such an uplifting presentation, and fascinating that you've worked in many of the institutions that we all hold dear and cherish in this country. So well done to you for going in there and hopefully modernising them a little bit from their origins, and supporting equality in this country. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen again and hand over to Jess, and we'll take questions after Jess's presentation, if that's okay. In the meantime, mentees, do feel free to add your questions to the chat if you're ready. Okay. Over to you, Jess.
Okay. Very busy site over there, but firstly, thank you everyone taking the time and not watching the football, especially England playing today. I was wondering how can I make the sessions more exciting so you don't feel like you're losing out. I think from what Hajara did is actually impact the whole nation. Compare what did probably only impact to the home office because probably we pay more tax, right? So and then she's very pretty much focused on non-profit organization. And I'm probably mainly focused on profit making organization, business driven. So what I did was probably working for me. I want to just give with the heads up first. Probably not going to be working for everyone here. But I'd like you to understand how I make the position that I'm in today. Just take a bit of my journey. So on the top left corner, so that's the place that I was born. So I'm originally from China. It's a place called Anshan. It's a place actually very famous for jade, because I know that China famous with China and jade. And the city actually underrated because it has the biggest jade Buddha in my city. But I don't think the government actually know the value of it. So they never did no promotion at all. So I'm trying to promote here. If you ever get a chance to visit China, do visit my city. It looks quite nice actually. So that's my city there. I'm also really into foodie. I love food. I love seafood. I'm talking to my friend. I said I want to retire in Spain because it's close to seafront, and then it's got all the seafood. So love seafood. Love hiking. Been to this is a view of Ben Nevis. So again, we talk about like a life-work balance, right? So it's about balance. It's not about work, making money. At the same time, you got to enjoy yourself. For me, food and traveling probably my main thing for me. So my career, right, how I started. So I moved to UK in 2000. So I did A levels in the UK. So when I apply for jobs, I love traveling. So I said to my parents, right, I said, well, can I study tourism? Then I can visit all the places. And then my parents, being Asian, right? So I don't know, some of you here like from Asia background, the family, the mom or dad from the Asian will be like, hey, you can't do tourism. You can't make money from tourism. You got to be the lawyer. You got to be a doctor. You got to be accountant. You got to be engineer, right? So there's a full categories of professions you can work in, but definitely not tourism, right? So tourism is not one of those. And then mom said, why don't you do accounting finance, right? So then that means you can get any job in the whole world because every company need accountant. And I said, right, okay, because I'm a good kid, right? So I'm not gonna go. I have to obey my family's decision. I go with my mom's suggestion. So did accounting finance in Leicester. Then I thought, oh, finally I get the job done, I get the work done. Then my study is finished. And then when I start my first job, they goes, oh, do you want to do ACCA or CIMA? And then say, oh God, study never finished. So we carry on with more study. So where we started, so this is actually my first permanent graduate trainee job. So before this job, right, don't get surprised. I actually work at another 6 companies. So all temporaries, right? So I think I probably have one of the many jobs in my CV that I haven't listed. I worked for Sainsbury's before, being a stock controller. That's when I do my A-levels, right? I already worked in a stock controller, price controller, and I worked for British gas business as an account manager, working in the evening from 5 to 9. So that's when I was at uni. And then I worked for Powergen, Eon, and then done O'Neill Homes and being an account assistant. Next, account payable clerk, Leicester University, account reconciliation, Byway Homes, and this is all before I start my first permanent job. So I did about a year of all those small jobs. Those are basic in terms of accounting job is account payable, but that give you a little bit background about all different areas in finance, in accounts, of what can you do. And then we got this opportunity came up. So and then I got this recruitment agency contact me saying, would you be interested in this role? I said, yeah, I will be. I've got on the job, and then it's actually in Worthing. It's on the coast. That's what I can say. It's on the coast. It's not a place for youngsters. But for me, it's a first graduate job, and then they actually offer a sponsorship for me to become a qualified accountant. And I think that's a pretty good offer. So took the role, and then I sort of get into the real world in terms of accounting. And then during the time I was there, I wasn't only there for 2.5 years, and then I worked for 5 subsidiaries, doing a lot of consolidation, get the P&Ls done, and then doing the transfer pricing. And that's the company we're doing SAP's implementation. I actually, went to Finland to do a bit of training, for the colleagues in Finland, and that's my first sort of travel. I was so excited. Oh God, I'm gonna go to Finland. I'm gonna visit Santa Claus, and in my head I was just, I have this picture. I'm gonna do all of these things. And when I got there, it's like hotel and office. I was literally hotel and office, 2 points every single day, 3 days, and on the 4th day, back to UK again. And then from then on, I said, oh, this is not what I want. I said, your early 20s, right? You say, oh, I'm gonna go overseas. I'm gonna go to Finland. You're so excited, and the next thing you know is a completely different from what you expected. You don't really have a time in your free time. You just work. Again, it's a good experience. And then I decided again. So mom said, oh, you need to do a master's degrees. I said, but why? Because your cousin did a master's degrees. Your cousin did an MBA, so you need to do that as well. I was like, but mom, why you spend money on doing a master's degree? But anyway, I said, okay, fine, I will do it. Then I sort of finished about 2.5 years and vow was vacant. and did my master's in finance and equity in the University of Wales. So it's about a year and a half master degrees. So when I finished degrees, and I went to BARD, so it's called CR BARD. It's also US public listed company, because I have a bit of gap on my CV. And then, a lot of companies, they have to be very conservative, when they're taking permanent employees. It's not just now. So back then, they were still very conscious about, what sort of people they're taking on board as a permanent employee. So I started as an intern. So I was in their intern for around about 8 months. And my line manager, he was really happy about the work that I've done. And then I was mainly looking at the inventory, doing a lot of ABC costing, manage all the inventories that's in Belgium. So Belgium, they have a massive distribution center, and then we sort of the central hub for all these EMEA business. So we have lots of subsidiaries, and then all this inventory, because it actually is a medical device company. So all the inventories, all the products actually get made in the US, and then they send it to like European hub, and then we will sort of sell it to all the subsidiaries across the world, and so including anywhere but apart from US. And then we actually manage it in terms of the pricing, set up the pricing and costing, cost roll, and inventory management, and then FX, because we were actually using a local currency rather than a US dollar or GBP when we send it to subsidiaries. So the subsidiary doesn't have an FX exposure. So all the FX is managed at the central hub, which is quite interesting, because you got to work with the US team to do a bit of hedging, which is another piece of work to understand, how we're hedging the FX changes. It's quite interesting, but at the same time, US being the US, because they like to take in control of everything. And they like to make a decision on everything, even though it's a wrong decision. But they like to take a decision because they're the head office, right? And then sometimes you can give a suggestion. The ultimate decision is still made by them, which is fine. And I think I was there for about less than 2 years, and then and over there, when I was there, I sort of finished my all the CMAS qualification, and I have more than 3 years experience. Then I become a fully qualified chartered accountant, and I was looking to the next step. And then it became very frustrating in terms of a career path for me working there, because everything was stationary, stagnation. There's nowhere for me to progress. So I took a decision, just resign the job, and the result actually finding another job. Obviously, not telling my parents about that, because it was so risky of not securing another job and then just quitting the job. But for me, I just thought, I think when you're young, right, you're so brave, you want to take the risk, right? You think you're so good. Oh, you'll be all right. Don't worry about this. Yeah, I'm gonna take the risk. Everything was so it's not a big deal. And that was me. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. Because I think I was on 3 months notice period. It's quite long. And I thought, I don't think anyone will wait for me for 3 months, because everyone want a quick turnover. They're probably gonna wait you for a month maximum. And the business won't let me go like less than 3 months. So I resigned without finding another job. And then when the time come close, and then I still can't find another job. And then we got this headcount that contact me saying, would you be open for contractors? I said, okay, that's interesting. I never thought about that. And the lady saying, well, because it's a lot of companies doesn't want to take the risk of having a permanent headcount because of budget control. But they have a special project, things like maternity cover, little project for the shop project to do, and then they only have budget for that period of time. And then it's a good way for you to gain experience. So that's when I have this door open in terms of there's other career path for me to do, rather than just stick with the corporate ladder. And then I have this opportunity, and I think it's a perfect opportunity for me to actually start my first contract role at Kimberly-Clark. So Kimberly-Clark is the I don't know, like Huggies or Kleenex. They're all made from they're all made by Casey, and then they have their sort of European head office in Reigate, which is not far from sort of Crawley. I used to live in Harrow, Brighton. that I used to drive to the KC headquarters in Reigate. So the job I was there, I wasn't in finance team, I was in the supply chain team, and then that's the time then I was a part of the cost transformation team, and then we have a annual target of cost saving 100 million. It's massive number, right? It looks like when I first jumped on board, the reason why we have this opportunity came up is because one was a lady doing the job, and she's getting married, and then she wants to have a honeymoon at the same time, so she wants to take a 1 year sabbatical holiday for a whole year, and that's why then I have this opportunity for me to take the role. So when I started the role, and I didn't quite, to understand that, okay, how can I actually support, each of the functions, and then that really helped me to build a bit more confidence in terms of talking through all different chain of the value chain. So it's basically you working on the supply chain. It's like end-to-end value chain. So you work with the R&D department in the US, or you're also working with the aftermarket in the UK and in Europe. So that's to close a whole loop in terms of the value chain. And then you're trying to working with them to understand, is everything on target, on track? So every day, or pretty much every week, I was on the phone with the different functions across the business in different regions. And I think three things that actually for me to gain when I was there is cost transformation. We call it, how can you make the cost transform into a cost saving, a target for the business, and also collaboration, so working with a different cross-functional team, working with them, because you sort of expose different experience, different cultures, because people from Europe, people from Middle East, and people from US, they will have a very different background, and how you actually communicate them, to get what you want. Because sometimes you have an off target, and because every quarter we have a target to achieve. When it's off target, how you actually get them back on track. So collaboration, working with everyone here, and then we have the 1 million, cost saving target set up. It's when you have this vision in your head to how we can achieve this, and also you have to motivate all your CEOs across all the regions. I remember because the target we set is 100 million, but the let me just get the light on because it's just, I think it's too quiet since it came off. So we give a bonus of all these general manager for every region is 200% bonus scheme. It's I think it's really appealing to everyone. It's a 200%, right? And so that's why so you have to get people motivated at the end of the day. So everyone is here for, one priority, do I like the job? And the second, it's a financial reward. And then, people need to get recognized for doing a good job. And I do think KC does realize that, and that's why I think it value as a good company, and that they wouldn't mind to give a 10% of the saving to recognize the people actually making that result happen. So I was there for about a year, and then I moved to EDF Energy. Again, it's energy factor. The reason why, because they actually changed whole board, and then they had a lot of different changes in terms of B2Cs and B2Bs and customers, and then because when they change the board, and then the headcounts are freeze again, so no one allowed to hire any permanent employees. So there's opportunity for contractors. I was very it was quite interesting because when I joined the role, and then I have to go to a like a computer-based interview, and I was very surprised that after many years experience, why do you have to go to a computer-based interview? So when I got off the road and I asked my colleague, I said, why is that? And they go, so actually, previously, we had the people, they do the talk at the interview very well. And then when they get assigned the job, they can't actually do the job. They don't know how to use the Excel spreadsheet. I cannot actually do a financial analysis job. After a week, that person just, get sacked by the company because you can't actually do the job. And I was like, wow, how interesting. I said, okay. I said, I didn't know people don't exist, but it's, people are different. So one thing for me is that you really got to learn that by your heart. like a step by step. There's no shortcut. If you just do the talk, you can't do the work. You're gonna find out. To me, I think that's a fraud. You not actually can't do the job. You can't just throw into the job. You're gonna find out. You're gonna exposed. I don't think it's a good way to, in professional career, but people does that. I would not recommend. I was there for a year. Did a couple of things, and I think, okay, so I've got my energy sort of industry experience, tick the box. Then I've got another opportunity came up working for Acidity. They are part of 3M now. The reason why is because, again, the company is going through transition, because it's a change of acquisition, going through mergers acquisition, and then I think during the time I was there for a year, and we actually implement a zero budgeting process. I don't think it's actually happened a lot in a lot of business. It actually, what that is a lot of business. We do, you're based on the budget. You produce the budget based on the last 5 years history result, and then combine with the future, forecast, and you do a budget for the next year. Well, when I was there, the zero budgeting is pretty much like everything start with zero, and you need to actually tell the business what do you need to spend and what's the evidence, what you're gonna get in return. Again, it's a whole new experience for me. And then at the same time, I developed a whole new KPI dashboard, which has got no narratives, and everything is picture based. Graph, pie chart, heat map, rack system, everything is very picture driven. Good experience. Then I moved to Accra, which is the company that I'm currently working. I was there for consultancy for around about 6 months, mainly leading on margin enhancement. Because when I was there and I realized the BOM is really, so bill of materials, the BOM is really high. Then I talked to the CFO back then, and I said, okay, I think we probably need to work on something, on the margin, because the material seems really high. And then I was sort of assigned to working with the margin enhancement team, to working on different projects. Long story short, and I think there's because the company is going through a lot of changes, and then I didn't feel it was the right time for me. So then I approached by another headhunter, L3 Harris. So they are based in Crawley. So they actually a simulator. They actually manufacture a simulator and the training the pilot. It's aerospace based. It's quite interesting. So I basically looking up to all the training center across the globe. So we have a training center in Northampton, training center in Thailand, training center in the US. So during the time I was there, I think I was so lucky that I got to travel to Thailand every 2 months. So I was there for a year, and that was a time that I thought, oh, this is kind of. At first, I thought, oh, I need to go to Thailand. I don't think it's going to be fun. I'm going to be work all the time. It's not going to be that great because I've done that before. It's going to be the same thing, I wasn't too keen, but this is a bit different now. And then this time is actually I have to go there for 2 months. Then I have the weekend for myself and the evening, and I got my colleague to take me out. So I was there for less than a year. Then I went to Thailand 3 times during the time I was there. So every single time when I visit Thailand, I normally set myself a target by looking at, what's the existing process or existing procedure that is not actually working for Thailand Training Center. And then I at least feel like objectives. I normally do 3 objectives that I think I can achieve within 2 weeks' time. I don't think I can set up more than 3 because I won't be achieved. I don't think if I can't achieve the target, there's no point to set target that I can't achieve. It's better to be realistic, and then I can work with the people locally to get that job done. So the first time I went and worked there, and then I tried to get a understanding about the current existing process, understanding their bottleneck, what the challenges that they have. Because they normally report everything 1 month late of the actual data, and then they have all the right reasons. I think they always come up with some valid reasons, but I think without being there yourself, you wouldn't understand that, what's the main reason behind it. Again, it's a good way for me to understand that, and then I'll try to work with the team to understand, what their real struggle, and then make some changes into the process so they be able to report based on the according to the US guidance and guidelines, so we can close the month-end close within 5 days working time. So we'll be able to report actual data. That was the first time when I got there. The second time, the system they use is Sage 50, which is really old, and that's why it doesn't it causes delays in terms of reporting and accuracy. So I did a business case with the team to get them into a SAP system, which is a group ERP system. And this is time that we actually. So we have a people in Thailand. It's me, representing from Europe, and then we also have a people from the SAP sub team from the US. So I flew from UK, and we've got 2 colleagues from US, and they flew into Thailand. So we have us and our Thailand team to working through the SAP integration. I think it's quite good project that we did, and then it has to. There's a lot of loss in translation. There's a lot of work needs to be done at time differences, because we still have to work with the US time, and because it's 12-hour differences, we have to start at 7 o'clock, or sometimes, we start 7 p.m. in the evening, so we'll be able to get everyone an hour and then start working with that. And I think the result was great. It's a bit hard work, but I think the result is great because everyone's trying to understand each other. We managed to get the basic. I don't think we can go to a complex modules yet, because to start off with SAP, you have to build the foundation first, to get the foundation correctly first, to be able to build the next model. So we managed to get SAP integrate into a Thailand team, and that's why US have more visibility about all the subsidiaries. Before I joined the business, Thailand is the only subsidiaries that US doesn't have a visibility, and they so struggle about why Thailand doesn't have a SAP, and then it's all, we don't understand why. I think that's the reason why I got sent to the US to Thailand to help them out, and for the US to invest in SAP, you need to do a business case. All right, so every time when you ask for corporate to invest in anything, you have to do a business case, and you have to justify what's the return ROI. It's always ROI. Don't forget this, because they are very money-driven business. Every time they ask, what's the ROI? What return can you provide? And that's why when you do a business case, you have to base on that. It's unfortunately that's the case. You can't say it helped to improve efficiency. They'd be like, okay, what's efficiency rate? What that's going to convert into dollars? And then you have to do the analysis to be able to back it up. And so that's the business case I did. During the time, I was so lucky because when I finished work in the daytime in the US, in Thailand, I also spent the evening working with the UK team. So my boss was the group CFO. He was he really recognized my efforts because I'm a contractor, right? So remember, so you contract is really good on day rate, but at the same time you don't have holidays, right? Remember that you don't have holidays. If you don't work, you don't get paid. But because you have to get right. For me, I didn't expect that, but my manager said that, why don't you take 10 days of holiday? Why still pay you for the 10 days? Because you work so many hours to get to a position we are in today. I was really troubled. Really? I said, you're going to pay me 10 days? That I'm not even in the office? He goes, yeah, why not? Just go. So me and my friend, we went to Cuba for 10 days of holiday. Well, I can chill on the beach and I'm still getting paid. It was the best feeling, right? Because normally you just work for the whole year and then and then take another month of holiday without getting paid. But that for me is like you have to give first to be able to receive something. Do not expect everything is given. Nothing is given. I think you have to get it. You have to earn it to get it, and then you deserve that, and then recognized by your line manager. And then I moved to Food Solution Group, and then I was looking up to 5 functions: IT, HR, finance, ERP, supply chain, manufacturing, so anything but sales. I don't do sales, but anything but sales. It's a small business, and we also have 3 subsidiaries. One is in Midland and London, and in Crawley. So with the food industry, there's one thing you can't get away is food wastage. And I remember when I joined the business, they don't do stock take on food, and then they have no clue about there was no GL code of wastage, because they think everything can be used, which is not true. I have to tell you that. And then I said, why we don't do that? They go, oh, because it's not a thing for us. I don't know. To me, I was shocking. And then I said, okay, fine, let's get this process going. So I think we did a lot of work there, and then I tried to implement just culture. So just culture is something that, you know, is a reporting system that any problem that you find out, you report straight away, and then you get the corrective action in place to be able to form to a better behavior going forward. And it's a mindset change. It's very hard nowadays to get any company to work on just culture. But if we start somewhere, you'll be able to get in a place. If you never start, you never get to a place. And that's when my contract journey finishes. And then COVID happened. Then the opportunity came up, and I worked for Hivation during the COVID time. Again, it's a Chinese public listed company. I worked there for 2.5 years, looking at 5 subsidiaries across global. And during the time I was there, and it was the highest profit year during the time I was there, and I'm working across 5 different CEOs. So a good project for me to do. And then came to the current role, which is aircraft seating. Sounds fancy, right? Aircraft seating, you know, everything relates to aerospace, and people think it's very high end. It's not really, yeah, it's just seats. It's just a more complex seat, I think. Challenges, when I first joined the business, loss making for 5-6 years. Didn't expect, I think when they first came in, I thought I'd just help him with finance. And then there's a lot of things happening when I first started. And so basically, I helped the company to restart everything, reset everything, restructure the whole management team, realign company strategy, reallocate people through everything. And so after I've been here a year, so managed to a loss-making business into a profit business. So the company is actually into a profit right now from last year. And then my role, that's where my role changed. So I started finance, and then I'm now sort of looking at the operations side. So I'm more towards true operations rather than finance, but still can't take eye off the finance, because you know, if you take the eye off the finance, things can go wrong very easily. So during this time, I think what I said, it was during this journey. When I first started my career, you know, I think everyone knows, like SpongeBob, right? So I think you have to be like a sponge, just learn everything, learn as much as you can, ask questions, you know, ask more questions just to get more understanding over the journey. I do a lot of self-reflection. So I want to know, what can I do differently to make the job better? What can I do differently to make my job more efficient? So I do a lot of self-reflection to, you know, to make me more professional, make me improve, make me to be a better person, make me to be the next professional contractor or consultant. And then over the time, you have to be very resilient, because the world is not like the world that you want to be. People surrounding you, you do not expect I'm not people pleaser, right? Do not expect everyone likes you. And you're gonna get a lot of pushbacks, but at the same time, you have to be resilient with all these problems or challenges that you have. Well into the position, I mean, today is a lot around about people management. You don't actually do the work yourself, but you need to have a good people to be able to do the work. If you manage a good people, and I think they always say, if you take care of the people will take care of the business. And I think that's very true. But you need to get the right people first to be able to make sure they can deliver the result that you want. So I think that will be my take on this. I hope you enjoyed the session, and that's my career so up to date. Yes.
Thanks very much, Jess. I have to say, as Hajira was talking, I was thinking, isn't it wonderful when all the little jigsaw pieces come together and make the big picture? where Hajira is at now. And then, as you've been talking, Jess, as somebody who dropped out of an accountancy and finance degree, I was actually learning all the intricacies of the finance world that I walked away from.
Not looking back.
I actually started my career in local government and the charity sector, similar to Hajira, and so never really understood the finance role. Although I've worked with finance people and still do. But for me, it was yours was a really fascinating presentation of all the things that finance people have to think about and how that impacts on the business. And then really for you to end your presentation by telling us that you've turned around a loss-making business into a profit-making business, which is ultimately the goal of any business person or anybody working for a company. That's fantastic. And it shows to me it's the culmination of all the skills that you've learned and all the technical skills and all the experience that you've gained over the years to actually being able to achieve that. So fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing. I really wanted to ask both of you, Hajira and Jess, if I may. We're kind of running short on time, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions. We don't have any questions from the mentees, so I wanted to ask really, Jess in particular at this stage, do you have any advice for mentees on how to work successfully in a multicultural team? Obviously, you've worked with companies that have got different offices and you needed to be able to combine those teams. One or two bits of advice that you might share with mentees.
Okay, so I think so a couple of things. I think, like I said it before, when you need to have this open mind, right? Because the open mind comes first, because people have different perceptions, right? Just because you think it should be this way, but doesn't mean other people think it's this way. Like even the way that you speak in a different tone or different language, and then always double check and confirm with others to see whether others will understand, or do you really understand? So we're not lost in translation or lost in interpretation. So have this open mind and don't judge things too quickly. Have the patience. Because I think when we have colleagues from Italy, I remember they're so relaxed about everything. They were just not worried about like tomorrow. They're so not worried about everything else. When this side, we're off track, and then you have to. But you can't say you need to get this done, right? Because they won't accept that. So you have these how things going on. You have these small talks. You have these small talks that show a bit of caring and become their friend, and then become their friend and trying to work. Do you have challenges? How do you work with this? And then prompt them, and so they be more acceptable in terms of okay, so I need to do something. But you do have to have the patience and be persistent, not giving up easily, because people are working differently. So that's with that culture. But when you work with Chinese, I want things yesterday. Why can't you get that done? Right? It's like so I got requests, and then it goes, I said, what's the time? Like, yeah, today PM, 5 p.m. It's like 1 p.m. now. How do you expect me to get this done? And you can't tell them, why don't you organize? Because they think they're perfect, right? So, I'm Chinese myself, but the Chinese, they think, we rule the world now, right? US is nothing. We rule the world. So you need to be on it. You have to be more efficient. they like that, and so I get that. And then you have to work with them and saying, okay, so this is the deadline. What do you need? And then so do you need everything? Or are there any priorities, right? So this is something you can't get everything done in one go, but you have to break them into blocks, but complete them by stages and then separate them into, okay, how about I give you this priority information today, then I will give it another information tomorrow, and then so that person can still meet the target. But not just saying, no, I cannot do this, right? So manager doesn't like to hear, I cannot do this, because they're going to judge your capability and competency. You're not good enough. You have to be good.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective and really useful to share that, because I think you do have to adapt to working with different cultures. Hajira, did you find that as a South African coming over to the UK? What was your feeling in terms of working in a new culture, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question and such an important one also. Because I think more and more we're starting to we work in multicultural, global, interconnected workforces.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, it is, coming from a different country, there's different cultures in the different teams, different languages, people are speaking different languages, backgrounds, in terms of identity, diverse identities. I would say, don't wait until you're in a multicultural team to develop that muscle. So I when I first came, and I worked in the charity sector, and I also did volunteering work, that helped me to sort of I then came across lots of people who were from different backgrounds, and um so then when I went into those organizations, it wasn't new, so that where there would have been discomfort, there wasn't any. The other thing I'd say is communication is everything. When I was in BBC, the newsroom, was all over the world. So in the Americas, in Africa, there were hundreds of bureaus all over, and so communication, I'd say, is everything. You know, it's like Jess was saying, like sometimes what might feel like respect in one context could read as like passivity, like being passive in another. So I think it's really important to be able to like judge the room, read the rooms, and then be flexible, be able to adapt.
Yeah,
And
I think that's key. And also spending time doing some observation and
yeah,
actually studying how different cultures work. And a lesson that I learned, I was looking at this a while ago, was actually there's a scale between business approach and social approach, and the scale tends to go from social, it sort of travels east west, away from social towards more business orientation. I think. Please correct me if I'm not
yeah,
making sense, but so it's always worth observing when you're working in multicultural teams and in different countries with teams that are made up of the local residents. Observe the culture and the expectations. So because in this country, we tend to not have long lunches and do the social stuff, but actually in other countries, the social and the time spent around the table, getting to know people, is often actually when business gets done. And if I can relate it to something in this country, I remember I was not a smoker, but I know that people I've worked with used to make this. It's a little bit like that Friends sketch. They used to go and make decisions in when they were having their cigarette breaks, and then suddenly, things had come up, and you weren't involved in that decision making process.
mm,
So it's definitely worth observing what happens and what the expectation is, how things work, and how to make things work. Lucia, please, I'd be delighted to hear your contribution as an Italian.
Thank you.
So just
Oh, yeah. She's right. Everything she said is right.
No one
No.
says.
No, I just wanted to add to this because this is an incredibly valid and valuable insight to offer, especially to the mentees, because it can feel quite intimidating when all of a sudden you are, trying to emerge from professionally and also trying to juggle all the communication styles and understanding of how do I work with my colleagues and at the same time I get what I need to get out of my career. There is another layer to the cultural experience that we have, because one is obviously with the teams, the colleagues, the people we work with, but there is also the company culture. And sometimes that tends to be something that is articulated with some rules. So what is it? What does it mean to be part of this company? And I think it's something that sometimes you you really have to understand where you sit with it. And I'm not saying it's going to be something you can agree on, because normally companies, they all tend to be, have integrity as a value, and collaboration, communication, making sure that people feel valued. So there is a huge alignment with trying to match everybody's expectations, whether it's the employees or the customers they service. But you will find that sometimes it's something that you also have to learn to manage alongside your personal experience with the actual people. Because although, inclusion, it's something that we all understand and we all value, the way it translates across cultures and across people is very different, or a company level. There might be specific things that a company wants to put in place to make sure that we deliver that inclusion. But that doesn't necessarily mean it aligns with the same value that I give to inclusion, or I want to see it manifested in the workplace. So it's all stuff that you will experience. Embrace it, because actually I think it's probably the most beautiful thing about human connection, the diversity piece. It doesn't have to feel intimidating. And I think the stories that you have shared with us tonight, I find it really inspiring, because it's nice to see how you can take your own experiences, your passion, and basically navigate this wonderful world of professional stuff, but still make it very much your own and get what you want out of it, and make it resonate with what you value for yourself. And I loved your Jessica. You're jumping from someone. I'm like, oh my God, this girl is busy.
But example, I remember this.
But I loved how you stay true to yourself throughout the whole thing. Like, for every step, it was like, yeah, but this is what I want to do. This is what I bring to the table. And I love that. And I think it's really nice, especially when you are getting started with your career, and everything feels like just so, even a little bit weird, because it not always makes sense. So it's nice to see. It's nice to see that no matter what, no matter, where you find yourself at some point, you can still carry on and continue, with what your values are and everything else. So thank you. I really loved that. Thank you to you both. It was really great.
Yeah, and I'm going to conclude the conference, Lucia. Thank you very much for that contribution. I think you're right. It's fascinating and really interesting to hear about the sort of cultural influences from home on work decisions and career decisions. And one of the common threads that we hear often in these career stories with our mentors is mum's influence, which I came up again from Hajira and Jessica, and certainly, and we've heard it many times. And I think it's you have to find your path, but you take advice from trusted people. And sometimes, mums are the ones that will just kind of shine a light somewhere perhaps you haven't thought about something, and help you maybe think a little bit more clearly. And and if mum's not there, then hopefully a mentor or a good friend, trusted friend, that's going to be able to do that for you as well. Guys, I'm going to end it there because we've had a really long chat. We're running out of time. Thank you so much. I'm sure people do want to catch up with the football at some stage. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much, Jess and Hajira, for your contributions, and you, Lucia. Thank you as always. I'm going to say good evening. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.